Hi everyone, how we doing today? All right, woo! All right, so hi, I'm here to talk about equitable decarbonization in practice. And I'm Jasmine Graham. I'm the executive director of Mid-Hudson Energy Transition. We're a nonprofit. We're based in Kingston, New York, as Sean said, which is in upstate Hudson Valley area of New York. And for us, we really believe that taking our energy future into our own hands allows us to build a just, resilient, stable, and affordable future. For us, it's really about bringing everyone along, making sure that the clean energy transition is inclusive, and as a part of that, creating new forms of cooperative energy ownership and wealth building, which I will talk about today a bit. So, as I said, we are based in Kingston on the ancestral lands of the Shawgatuck, Munsee Lenape, and Mohican people. We have about 70% of all households in Kingston that are classified as disadvantaged by the state. And in our three kind of priority census tracts in Midtown Kingston where we work, 58% of the population are people of color, 62% are Hispanic or Latino, and overall across all of Kingston, more than half of all of the buildings were built before 1939. Little fun fact about Kingston is it was New York State's first capital, so it is very old, and that means that the buildings are very old. So next slide, please. And our mission is to empower communities to own and share renewable energy, create healthier buildings, joining community wealth building, and I'll kind of break down our programs in those three kind of categories. So first off, we empower communities, and this starts with our community council that you can see right here. We have community leaders that have joined our community council. We meet with them every month. They give feedback on our programs. They tell us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, how can we make sure that our programs actually align with the needs of the community. And we do a ton of outreach. So we are at this point averaging about one event per week. In the past year, we've attended or hosted 62 events, and we've engaged over 2,100 people. And of the small events that we go to, about 44% are LMI and BIPOC. Next, please. And then we got started as a community choice aggregation. And in most spaces, I would say that, and people would be like, well, what the hell is that? But we're in California. So we got started as a CCA, but in New York, CCAs are very different. It's all about just like the bulk wholesale purchase of electricity. It's not any energy generation. And so we've kind of thought of ourselves as having this like CCA 3.0, where we're bringing in a lot of other exciting things, like community solar, which, not that exciting. Everyone knows about community solar at this point. But our community solar projects have a 15 or 20% discount, depending on if you're in a disadvantaged community, it's 15%. If you're low income, it's 20%. And we're also working on a municipal thermal energy network with the city of Kingston and community-owned agrivoltaics. And New York is surprisingly behind on agrivoltaics. About, I think, 80% of like the land that is viable for solar is farmland in New York State. And so there's needs to kind of pilot new exciting things. And while I could talk about this, that's not really what I'm going to focus on today. So the next slide and the next thing that we do is creating healthier buildings. And for us, we are providing free wraparound technical assistance to folks who want to decarbonize. And that's particularly for low-income folks, BIPOC folks. I'll talk a little bit more about it, but just think of this free wraparound technical assistance, okay? And then we're gonna come back and just like put that in your head and be like, what's that about? And then the next two slides are just joining community wealth building. I don't want to spoil the goods there. I'm going to tell you about it later. And then to strengthen the resilience. So next slide. So our home upgrade grants program, or HUG, wraparound technical assistance, pretty good, I know, is providing free and immediate improvements to eligible homeowners. And I'm really glad that the first presentation that we had was about renting, because in Kingston, we have a huge renter community. About 56% of all of Kingston are renters. But we don't have good solutions for making sure that they don't have their rent increase or that they're displaced after we would potentially give landlords a grant. So for us, we know that we could write something into the lease agreement. We could have certain stipulations. But who's going to enforce it? Not us. Are we going to show up every year on the dot and say, hey, did your rent go up more than 3%? We wrote in the lease agreement that it shouldn't do that. So there's some gaps there. And so while we are a very new organization, we were founded in 2021, first full-time staff just last year. We're going to start with homeowners so that we can have one thing that is semi-easy for us. And our grants are really focused on health and safety improvements that are usually hard to fund and are important prerequisites to building decarbonization work. And this might be controversial to say here, but it's okay. I tell people that I, in good conscience, am not going to put a heat pump in their home until they've done energy efficiency and weatherization. And I cannot... Oh. Yes. And so, but I'm not going to do energy efficiency and weatherization until I've gotten rid of the environmental health hazards. And so, I'm not going to seal in someone's building envelope when they have toxic black mold on the ceiling, right? And so, while there's money available for heat pumps, while there's money available for energy efficiency, there's not money available for the health and safety upgrades that are needed, the deferred maintenance, the structural issues that are so key. And so prior to this role, I actually did policy work. And one of the policies that I was helping create over in New York is called the Green Affordable Pre-Electrification Fund, or the GAP Fund. And I did name it. And one of the things the big thing that we were advocating for there is a huge pot of state money specifically for this cause, for the deferred maintenance, structural issues, all of the barriers that actually prevent low-income folks from electrifying. And so that's where we're focusing. And our team makes it easy for the work to get done. We are managing the projects, we're connecting people to contractors, all the like, and stacking incentives, and I'll get into that. But next slide, please. So as I said, we are prioritizing homeowners. We're focusing on folks that are living in disadvantaged communities, folks that are BIPOC, folks that have been deferred from other programs. We have a state program called Empower Plus that gives you up to $10,000 at once to do energy efficiency work if you're low income. There are a lot of reasons why people cannot access Empower Plus money, one of them being an inoperable heating system. And they say that it's unsafe for the contractors to go in. That is what they say. And so we actually have folks that are coming to us because they have an inoperable heating system, so they're not eligible for energy efficiency and weatherization dollars. And we prioritize folks that are low income or moderate income, which for us is less than 80% of the AMI, or the area median income. And then, we expect participants to engage in pre and post surveys, provide their energy bills so we can measure potential cost reductions, fingers always crossed, and also sharing their experience through photos and videos. And so this is a really, really simplified version of the customer journey. We start off through the Empower Plus program. We are able to get everybody free energy audits. We work with the contractors to create a scope of work that makes sense for them. Then we determine their eligibility for the home upgrade grants. At first we thought, oh yeah, we're gonna do $5,000, $10,000, or $20,000 grants. We're gonna have 15 $5,000 grants, 10 $10,000 grants, and 5 $20,000 grants. As if any project ever comes in as a whole number. It's like we need $3,742.69. Okay, so we kind of had to scrap that, but we look at people's energy cost burden, we look at the health and safety, we look at the demographics of the home, all of those things, and determine their eligibility. We get to work. We don't physically do the construction. We partner with contractors that are in the Empower Plus program, and then our goal is to share our projects, so we're doing that right now. And here's what we're finding. Lots of mold and moisture and leaky buildings. Like I said, these buildings are old. In one case, and it's actually this one right here, this is the second floor of somebody's home, and that's all, the mold and moisture coming through. They have, their roof is currently being held up by like 2x4s. And they are a senior citizen, low income, BIPOC, longtime resident of Kingston. Kingston is also a place that is experiencing a lot of gentrification. It had the second highest amount of folks coming to the Hudson Valley from New York City after COVID. And so this person in particular needs a $40,000 roof repair before they can consider anything else. And so while we've already earmarked a $20,000 grant for them, that leaves a lot to be done. And so we're actually working with other programs. We're hoping to get a $17,000 grant from another local housing kind of assistance nonprofit, and really just stacking all available incentives to make these cases work. And what we found is we have 5 times more interest than we thought. Of course, the green is go back one. The green is the 30 grants that we have to give. We've given out 6 so far, most actually on the lower end, and I'll talk to you about why on the next one. But we had over 80 applicants. Next slide. So 84 people signed up. A lot of those folks, some of them didn't live in Kingston, some were income eligible, some were landlords who said, I don't want to bother my tenants. We said, please bother your tenants. Like in this case, it's important. We had some tenants that said, I don't want to bother my landlords. So we actually got to 23 of those applications submitted, 13 audits completed so far, 4 grants approved from our home upgrade grant money. 3 of them are fully funded by Empower Plus. 4 projects are pending construction, 3 projects are completed, and 3 post-inspection scheduled. So really, all these are saying there are 7 projects in the queue right now, like somewhere in happening. And one of the important things here, I forget, but yeah, this is what we've done to date. All right, next slide, please. Oh, yes. Okay, here's what I want to talk about. So right now, the average MHET grant is about $5,800. MHET is Mid-Hudson Energy Transition, my organization. Average NYSERDA grant, NYSERDA is our state energy agency, is about $13,297. And as I said before, you can get up to $10,000, right? But this is a really interesting part of this program is if you're low income, you can reapply. So you can actually get $10,000 multiple times, and it's not always, again, $10,000. It could be $11,100. They'll give you a little bit of leeway depending, but you just have to show project cost effectiveness. And one of the really interesting things that we learned is that they value wall insulation really highly. And so like in their cost effectiveness calculator. And so if you do the first half and you do, let's say like attic and basement insulation, you can do, $10,000 worth of that and air sealing and put in some new vents and things like that. You can leave the walls for last, and you can do it on the second part of the project because it pretty much always meets the cost effectiveness test. And so in some cases, people are slated to get about $20,000 or $25,000 of NYSERDA money as long as they reapply and each project that they put to NYSERDA actually meets the cost effectiveness test. So far, we've given out $23,000 of our own money and $70,000 of NYSERDA's money, which I love. And I'm not really good at math, but I think that's like for every dollar we're spending, NYSERDA's spending too. And I feel like that's fair. So next slide. But we're here to talk about electrification. That's what we're here for. And this is not enough to get people there. So this is why we've developed the Home Energy Loan Program and the Help Fund. And I feel like this is a kind of new thing that people might not be thinking about. But when we talked to our community, they said, I don't have the time or expertise to figure this out myself. And I don't have the money. And we said, okay, we'll project manage the whole thing for free. Time, check. Expertise, check. And they're like, the money. And we were like, okay, yeah, we'll figure that part out. So we did. And so we're creating this program. And our slogan, shout out Kyra Schasberger, our amazing comms fellow, accessible loans for healthy homes. So next slide, please. So we are generating inclusive financing for people and communities facing systemic exclusion to accelerate a just and local renewable energy transition. Again, grounded in community, advised by our community council, Our organization, MHET, created actually a separate organization to administer this fund and associated loan program. And we're supported by innovative partnerships with NYSERDA, local banking partner, philanthropy, and eventually, investors like you, okay? Next slide, please. So our key objectives are to issue very low interest loans and grants to finance the energy efficiency, climate resilience, electrification work, also providing an opportunity for investors to support local renewable energy transition, and also incorporating credit stabilization features to support underbanked communities in building back their credit, fostering financial literacy, generating passive income. To go back to that slide that was all about community wealth building being a key part of what we think needs to be in the energy transition. So next slide, please. So our fund is really different, and essentially, actually, this should maybe say our loan program is different, but it's exclusively reserved for people that are less than 80% AMI. So typically, those are the exact people that are not able to lend. We actually say, no, you have to be low income. We also are offering relationship-based financing. It's very inclusive. We're sourcing it from diverse groups of investors, and we'll get to that later. And really cost-effective solutions, because I'm kind of spoiling it, but it's 2% interest loans. So next slide, please. So this is where I thought I was going to announce the 2% interest loans and get the like shock and awe factor. But 2% interest loans, especially, wow, okay. Wow, right? I've never seen that, especially not today. We also have these like very innovative features, like a rainy day fund, deferred payments, a dividend distribution, and solar notes. The last of which is I'm most excited about. So we're gonna kind of power through so I can get to that one. 2% interest loans, up to $50,000 available. No credit requirements, no liens, collateral, or guarantees needed. And borrowers must be low income or economically disadvantaged. We will be doing a credit check, even though there's not a credit minimum or requirement. We do a credit check so that we can get a sense of their debt to income ratio, if they actually have the means to pay it back. To the best of our ability, we are looking to align the work with hopeful like energy bill reductions, especially when it comes to the energy efficiency side, but that's not always going to happen. So in this process, as I said, it's relationship based. We'll be like walking people through their budget, actually going through and making sure that they can afford the loan, but 2% interest loans. The Rainy Day Fund is funded by philanthropy, and it was this idea that allows borrowers to essentially miss up to one payment per year if they're experiencing any kind of hardship, but it won't be counted as a missed payment because it's covered by this grant, and therefore it's not going to show up on their credit report as them getting behind. So if they can demonstrate any kind of hardship, we'll be able to pull from the Rainy Day Fund and help them out. Same with deferred payments. If you have any kind of extended hardship, you lose your job, something like that, we are building in a feature for people to be able to defer payments for a period of time while they get back on their feet. I say just a period of time because we haven't designed this part of it yet, and it's pretty complicated. I'm working with a lot of bankers and lawyers, but we're going to figure it out. Here's where it gets really, really cool. So on the dividend distribution, borrowers who make successive on-time payments could get some kind of money back, right? So we, instead of taking the stick approach, we want to take the carrot approach. Hey, you paid your loan back for 3 months, here's $10 back, or whatever it might be, right? So it could be a percentage of their loan payment or a fixed amount. But what if we could take it a step further? And before we go to the next slide, I'm going to tell you guys, if I die tomorrow, this is going to be my claim to fame, okay? So like, let this live on in my name, all right? Next slide, please. So I had this idea about solar notes, where if a borrower makes an on-time payment, instead of just getting money back, which is great for like a very, like, you know, minute amount of time, like you're just like, oh, like I got $20 back, we're going to have a nice dinner or something like that. Well, or like takeout, maybe a coffee these days and age. But what if Mid-Hudson Energy Transition, as a nonprofit, owned a portion of a community solar project, and over time, we gifted out notes, so essentially, it's essentially a debt security, but we would issue these notes that would represent a stake in a solar project. And so as people pay their loan back on time, let's say every quarter, every 3 months, you get $25 in solar notes. At the end of a 10-year loan, you've got $1,000 of ownership in a solar project that's now going to generate passive income for the next 20 years of that project. Is it going to be a huge amount? No. But is it more passive income than someone had before? Yes. And one of the things that I think is typically a really big barrier to cooperative models is like the need to put in upfront capital. A lot of people don't have that. So in this way, we are actually incentivizing folks who are just, they're borrowers. They're taking the chance to invest in their own future, to upgrade their homes. And as a benefit for doing that, they can actually accrue some kind of stake in a solar project and generate passive income. So I did think of this on a random Wednesday. I was on a call with one of our finance lawyers, Brian Becken, and he said, yeah, I think that can be done. And when a lawyer tells you it can be done, that is so exciting, because that means it might actually be able to be done. And so we don't actually have any ownership in a solar project today. So if any of you do this is cool. I really want it to happen, but it's going to take us a while to actually have any kind of ownership in a renewable energy project. But when we will implement this as a reward for our borrowers. So eligible measures, tons of things, electrification of heating, cooling, cooking systems, of course. Also pre-efficiency and pre-electrification. So we're working with NYSERDA, our state energy agency, to get a loan loss reserve. So, because there is no collateral, no credit checks, all those things, we are gonna have the backing of the state for a loan loss reserve. And as long as 51% of the measures are energy efficiency or like energy generation, like solar or something like that, the other 49% can be structural issues, deferred maintenance, any of those other things. And energy efficiency, renewable energy generation, and also not quite on day one, but we will get to the point in which you can use these loans for EVs, electric scooters, EV charging stations at your home, et cetera. And in our area, these are the eligible incomes based on HUD's guidelines. So one person, about 54,000, up to, we typically look at 4 people. That's usually what we see, and that's about 76,000. So. And how will we raise the money, right? We're going to give out loans, but we need to have money ourselves. And so this is one of the, I think, most innovative ways that we are able to raise the money. We've actually created a securities offering, and we have different types of investment notes that people can invest in. Community notes are for non-accredited investors. That's everyday folks. Like, to be an accredited investor, you have to make over $250,000 a year for 2 years, or have over $1 million in assets outside of your primary residence, or have like a certain license. So basically, most of us here maybe are non-accredited investors. I know I am. And non-accredited investors, kind of everyday folks, can get 4% interest by putting money into this fund. The reason why they can get 4% interest, but our loans are only 2% interest, is because we have philanthropy doing an interest rate buy down for that other 2%. So impact notes are for accredited investors. Basically think like impact investors, angel investors. They get a 3% return. And then mission notes are for philanthropy, and they get a 0% return, but they can get their money back. But one of the exciting things about how we structured this is that it's tiered, in that if there are losses to the fund, philanthropy covers it first, then impact investors, then community investors. So community investors will always get paid back first. Next slide. And investments have 4 times the impact, right? Of course, you're helping people to reduce emissions, increase their energy efficiency, grid resilience, health. You're getting healthier homes, positive health outcomes, reduced medical bills. You've got people having lower energy bills, increased property values, reduced late fees, increased credit scores and lendability, more local spending, and then also preventing displacement and reducing housing insecurity by keeping people in their homes, which is very difficult in Kingston where we're working. And so we are just getting started. This fund actually has not launched yet. We are going to launch it for Climate Week in New York City in just a few weeks, so you guys are getting a little sneak peek. We have completed the offering memorandum, which is like a 60-page legal document that I have read every word of. But like actually I have. And I wrote big parts of it, and then like thankfully lawyers came in and said, here's what we should actually say. But this is really exciting. The offering memorandum is live on our website, which is here, investinhelp.org. And we initially called this the Mid-Hudson Energy Equity Fund, but finance folks were like, equity means like we're getting ownership. And we're like, well, you're not getting ownership of people's homes. And they said, well, then your name is confusing. And we said, okay, fine. So because it's the Home Energy Loan Program, or HELP, this has now been renamed as the HELP Fund. And so do check out the website. It's very beautiful. We used local web design folks in Kingston. And next slide, I think it's just thank you and questions.
I have a question and a follow-up. What fraction of folks are doing solar?
So the fund and the loan program haven't launched yet, so 0%.
Any idea like what number of folks would be doing solar?
It's hard to say. You know, I think so far in the cases that we've seen where people would be like very eligible, they haven't really been coming to us for solar. People are looking for new heating and cooling systems, but a lot of folks want the energy efficiency and weatherization and need help financing that. But like, yeah, I guess I want the answer to be like, yes, everyone wants solar, but that's not what we've had so far.
The reason I was asking for that, I looked up, I'm not that familiar with the East Coast, but I know like National Grid has regressive pricing on a lot of things, right? The more you use, the less you pay. And so if you do the math, excluding weatherization, just like on a per heat basis, it makes things more expensive from an electrification standpoint. And you can tell me more about that because I don't know the rate structure, but so I'm just wondering, like, without solar, how do you sell some of this electrification stuff, knowing that like National Grid, Con Ed, it's really challenging to tell people, yeah, you can save money by electrifying, where it's like, you do all this stuff you can, but you know, ultimately more expensive.
Yeah, so first and foremost, we are in Central Hudson territory, so not Con Ed or National Grid. Central Hudson is the most hated utility, and I know you guys are going to be like, no, oh yeah, you know, you guys think, y'all are going to be, yeah, see, everyone thinks that their utility is the worst, but I'm telling you, I used to work in Con Ed territory. I have never met people who hate their utility as much as Central Hudson, and with good reason. They just got charged with this huge suit because they updated their billing system and it messed up everything. And people were getting $3,000 bills. There was like a small business that got like a $200,000 bill. People are behind by $5,000, $17,000 on their electricity bills. And so there's actually a huge movement in the Hudson Valley to create a publicly owned energy authority because everyone hates Central Hudson so much. So yeah, I mean, not like we don't have, I would definitely not say we have like advantageous pricing in any way. What we don't ever do is tell people that they're going to save money. We make it very clear that like you would cut your fossil fuel costs, but you know, we don't know exactly what it's going to do to their electricity bill, which is why we focus so hard on energy efficiency and weatherization.
Yeah, no, but that point about energy efficiency, everybody skips over it. Everybody's like, electrify, decarbonize, we're great. And then like your heat pumps are 2 to 3 times the size.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic that you guys are absolutely pushing that and educating people about it. And then also addressing the issues of mold, hazardous health, hazardous conditions, etc. It's just fantastic. I mean, hats off to you. This is like amazing.
Thank you.
Like, you get that? That's why.
Thank you. And I will say, yeah, for the first few folks that we've had really positive feedback. We don't have our post surveys yet, but folks are already saying like, I usually have to run both of my ACs on full blast. Now I'm only using one on like medium setting, and like we're already getting feedback that people are really excited about it. We're also like so deep in the community that people are calling us with like any kinds of issue. Like it's not like, and it's actually great. Like there's someone who was like, I haven't received my Central Hudson bill, shocker, in like 2 months, and they called our bilingual community organizer and they were like, hey, I can't get my Central Hudson bill. I haven't got my Central Hudson bill. And he went to that person's house, showed them how to use the online portal and get access to their bills. So a lot of this is really the product of being there and just being very responsive to what people need in real time. Nick.
Jasmine, first of all, love the work you're doing. Last year was amazing, this year's even better. So I have 2 questions and maybe a comment.
Okay.
First question, on the health and safety scoping and pricing network, because living in the multifamily space, we try and avoid those projects, so hats off to you for actually, I mean, that's a gut we have. If you add in health and safety and get all the way to cutting gas out building full electrification.
Yep.
But I asked when you're scoping and pricing that work, do you require things like exploratory openings from your contractors as part of field assessment before you're willing to even, I'd say go further? Because really there's like these decision trees looking at old buildings.
Yep.
So having kind of been living in this world for a few years, I'm curious, one, on the field assessment side, you require exploratory openings from your contractors. And then the second question is around the financing. I love, this is my comment. I love that, at least on the multifamily side, you wouldn't have to collateralize the debt. That's a major issue when you're dealing with big portfolio operators. They're just, between their debt capacity and willingness to do things like put up other buildings for a big project,
Right.
it's usually a non-starter. So that's great. My question is on GGRF. Are y'all working at all with like state green bank efforts to create some of these financial products? Because as we get out of the IRA window, gap financing, a lot of, whether that's climate bonds or these solar notes, a lot of private sector or third-party capital is going to have to come in and backfill when all this federal money goes away and we go back to the current landscape, which is like scattered utility programs, maybe a few state programs here and there, some municipal stuff. So yeah, 2 questions, I guess.
So the first is we don't do exploratory openings yet. One thing that I haven't mentioned is we pretty much are exclusively working in single-family detached. Kingston, there's a lot of like 1 to 4 family multifamily, like it's still considered residential. We haven't thus far done that. Most of the homes that need the most health and safety, like the one that I talked about, are like not even at the point of getting that like full audit. Like we know that like we have to replace the roof before we can do anything else. And so we are trying to work with some of the GGRF folks. We've talked to a few of the different like coalitions and awardees. I would say that most, and I wouldn't say this of the GGRF people, but of working with like the Green Bank and folks like that, our model is like very inclusive, but like to the point that like some financial institutions don't feel very comfortable with, the way that we're lending. But it's actually a lot of innovation on the NYSERDA side. And I have to wrap up. So I want to give a shout out to NYSERDA's financing solutions team that is helping us with this loan loss reserve and is doing a lot to make sure and actually helping us build the connections with the folks to finance it. But as I said before, the investment opportunities are open. I don't know if California allows non-accredited investors. You have to have a certain charitable exemption, and New York has this self-executing charitable exemption, which means we don't have to file a bunch of paperwork with the SEC in order to run our fund, which is really great. But for a lot of folks, you can invest in our fund, and that's another way to raise money that is not, GGRF. So give us money.